The title of this video is Clearing Your Third Eye, or Sixth Chakra. This is actually the fifth video specifically addressing the third eye or the sixth chakra, because this is the source of your clairvoyance, which is a very useful type of psychic ability, and it is the one that most people think of when they think of psychic abilities. So this video is for those who requested information and training on how to develop psychic abilities based on my YouTube playlist on psychic development. This series is for those who are serious about not just becoming psychic, but also learning to understand what the non-physical realm might hold and how it affects you, and how clairvoyantly can help you to perceive these subtle energy fields. So this video and the others in this series are actually for those who are serious about not just becoming psychic, but learning to understand and see clairvoyantly and how to handle what shows up. There are many psychics that can see things and will tell you things, but they may not know what it means or know what to do with it. And that, I think, is the really important part of the whole project. So I also suggest that you take notes on these videos, and here's why. When we start the readings, you're going to need to remember the steps and the procedures and the techniques. And if you don't have notes on that, and if you haven't been doing it for a while, you're going to get lost. In this series, I'm going to be starting with the chakras, because the chakras contain so much information about us. And once you learn the basics about them and the other aspects of psychic development that I can go into, everything is going to be a lot easier. I'll start with the sixth chakra, or the third eye, with a very detailed process in the next video. So I suggest that you don't jump ahead to the guided process on the sixth video, or much of it's not even going to make sense to you. You won't know how to apply it, and it won't work effectively for you, and then you're only going to end up getting prematurely frustrated with the whole process and give up. This is for those that are really serious about discovering non-physical realities, what these energy patterns mean, what do you do with them, how you can clear them, which ultimately leads you to an ascension state of enlightened consciousness. So this will be the first one, or the first chakra that I'm going to be addressing. And depending on how much interest there is in this specific approach to psychic development, will determine if I'm going to continue the series. So if there is sufficient interest, then I'll do videos on all the other chakras. And there's a whole lot of other topics I can go into that would be valuable for you to understand as you open up your psychic ability. I saw a video recently stating that if you stare at a candle flame, it can open your third eye. And I just wonder how many hundreds or thousands of people might be trying that. But I can tell you from my experience, in that literally teaching thousands of people about subtle energy and about not only seeing clairvoyantly, feeling psychically, and hearing psychically, that you could stare at a candle flame for months and not open your third eye. If you don't know why it is closed and what to do to open it, no amount of passive process is going to succeed in opening it. So this fifth video in this series continues where the previous four videos leave off. It's a continuation. This video is going to give you a lot of needed information that's in the background to prepare you for the process that you're going to do in the next video, which guides you to the discovery and the inner attunement to psychically begin gathering information about your third eye and how to clear issues affecting your third eye or your sixth chakra. But not just that, because the issues that affect the sixth chakra are more than just about seeing clairvoyantly. That's a processing center for a whole lot of the things that go on in your life. So despite the fact that it does take some work and some time, it's actually not difficult. And I've actually devised a system that makes it pretty easy and also a lot of fun. It does require practice. It requires practice to get all of the insights that you want psychically, all the things that you need to know to clear your third eye, and all of the abilities and the skills in knowing what to do with what you find is blocking what is being processed through the sixth chakra. The early videos in the Psychic Development series are about building tools to make the learning process easier, and they become your foundation for all the future applications. Now, once you become skilled at using all of these, and you've developed and you become more proficient in your psychic skills, you won't need to use these tools anymore. It's the same with all of the clearing techniques that I teach. You use them until you no longer need them. And at some point, when you become clear, you don't need to use any of these techniques anymore. You'll be able to move on to much higher levels of realization. So for the time being, think of them a little bit like training wheels on a bicycle, and you can remove them after you no longer need them. But don't dismiss them at the beginning until you've proven that you can ride the bike without them. And how long is that going to take? I suggest you use these tools for at least a year or maybe 2. So let's get into some of the details. Because everyone is familiar with televisions and computer screens, we can use them to enhance your familiarity with a way of training your mind to open your clairvoyant vision. So when I speak of psychic skills, I'm using that term in a very broad sense to include all kinds of psychic impressions. And there may or may not be a visual component. In fact, actually, in my opinion, what you feel, what you sense, what you conceptualize is a lot more important than what you see. However, that said, seeing with your third eye is an asset. Since you're able to examine energy patterns, you'll have more understanding of them for what they are. And but when you can see them, that helps determine how successful you are in clearing them. So when you're desiring to observe something clairvoyantly, it's often helpful to imagine that you're viewing them on a screen, something that you're familiar with. And what you're familiar with are like computer screens or your TV. Some people imagine they're in a movie theater watching a movie on a large screen. Some imagine they're watching a TV. Some imagine that they're using a computer screen or a tablet or even an iPhone for that matter. It can work. And you want to pick whatever seems easiest for you and be willing to experiment with other options. I would suggest that you use something larger than a smartphone. Or if you're going to use a smartphone, imagine it as a very large smartphone. And the reason for that is because if you have a larger image, it makes reading what's on the screen a lot easier. You'll find that if your screen is large, you can see a big picture, much better than if it's a little tiny picture. So you want to work with making your screen a little bit larger than probably reality for now. So if you're used to an 18-inch TV screen or computer screen, make it a 3-foot one or a 4-foot one. And you can actually enlarge it to any size that works for you. But make it large, at least for the time being. Think of the screen in front of your mind's eye as viewing what is happening in present time. So when we bring up an image of a chakra on that screen, you're looking at what that chakra is processing right then and there in present time. So you're going to want to keep the screen clean. And what I mean by that is you want to wipe off old pictures or patterns with some form of golden energy. You could imagine using a golden eraser, for instance, or pouring golden light over the screen. And in any case, you don't want to be picking up your own memories from the past. If you're attuning to someone else, you want to be attuned to their energy, not your own energy. I'll have more to say about that in a little bit. But this is your present time screen, and it's the screen that you're going to be using and looking at 99% of the time. But you can also have more than one screen. For instance, generally, you can have a past time screen to your left and a future time screen to your right. The present time screens are in the center. So you can have 3 screens. And if you prefer, you can put your past time screen underneath the present time screen and your future time screen above. Some people prefer that way. Whatever works for you, but be consistent. You don't want to be switching back and forth between the orientations of your screens. So you can practice a little bit one way or the other and see which is the most comfortable for you. And then once you get used to using it, stay with it. The screens can always be any size you want them to be. You also want to make sure they're outside of your aura. If they're inside of your aura, in other words, if your aura overlaps your screen that you're looking at, you're going to be reading whatever is in your own aura. Then you think that you're reading what's in someone else's energy field. You're wanting to observe someone else's energy and give them information and give them a reading. But if your own screen is inside of your own aura, you're going to be reading some of your own information and mistakenly thinking that you're reading the other person. And I think a lot of psychics make this mistake. They don't realize how much energy they've picked up from previous people that they've been reading, or maybe their own memories and their own energy. And because they see it and they think they're seeing it clairvoyantly when actually they're reading their own memory, they end up projecting that onto the person that they're reading. So a lot of times psychics are giving you distorted information. They're not even giving you information that's yours. So now when you're doing a reading and you're holding the intention of reading someone else's energy field, there's a tendency for you to reach out with your aura to engulf the other person. You sort of reach out to them. In some cases, people even come outside of their body and move out in front of their very aura in order to read the other person's energy field. This happens a lot. And so it creates a bit of a problem because then you're not really even reading the other person. You're reading your own energy or reading the other person's energy mixed with your energy, and who knows what it is that you're coming up with. So you want to watch the expansion of your aura and pull it back if you notice that it's projecting out. And I'd suggest you bring it into 18 inches. It doesn't need to be any more than that. So if the boundary of your own aura is at 18 inches, then you make sure that the person whose energy you're reading is beyond the 18 inches. That's a good containment distance, and it's manageable. In general, the pastime screen is just to gather some information for something that you're addressing in the present. And that's so that you can help shift it. The idea is to find out what's in the person's past that's affecting them in the present so you can clear it. So for instance, if you want to gather information from a past life, for instance, you want to know what past life is having the most influence on the issue that this person is dealing with in their present life. And then you wait for impressions to arise as you're looking at your past life screen. And you can see all kinds of things. You could see people, you could see buildings, animals, symbols, words, images, or maybe you just get a sense or a feeling of something. But it probably won't be like watching a movie, so don't expect that. If you have an expectation of what you're going to see, you're going to distort what's actually coming through psychically. Just let your intuition be your guide. And now, with relation to the future life screen, this is the one that you either have above or to your right, people often want to know about their future. Will I get married? Who will I marry? When will I get married? Will I get a new job? When will I get a new job? Will I have to move? Where should I move? Should I go to Texas? Should I go to Florida? You can look on the future screen and see what the probabilities are. You'll never know 100%. They're always probability. The future is always probable. So you read out what you're perceiving, and then you get off of that screen and go back to the present screen. The future is always a matter of probabilities. So you can ask to be shown if a particular future is highly likely, moderately likely, or less likely. So it's one way of doing it. You can look on the future screen, and whatever you're seeing, you ask, is this highly likely? And you might get a yes or no answer. Depending on what you get, move to the next one. Is this moderately likely? Is it around a 50-50 opportunity? See what you get. Is this less likely? Is this less than 25% likely? And by utilizing the screen that way and by asking questions that way, you can narrow down the likelihood and the probabilities. Now, no matter which screen you're watching, you want to stay in the center of your head when you're scanning and reading energy. That will help you stay neutral. When you read energy of another person, there's this tendency to leave the center of your head and project parts of yourself into the other person's aura to get information. So I've already told you, keep your aura pulled in, but what about keeping you from getting into the other person's aura? Well, if you've watched the previous videos in this series, I've gone over some tools to help you with this. You want to stay in the center of your head while you're doing the reading, especially while you're doing psychic readings. You don't have to be there all the time, although I think it's a good idea. So far, we've set up an office. You have a desk. You have a telephone on your desk. You have a computer. And now you have 3 screens. I suggest that you make the screens large enough so you can get wide and high images. And you also have a telephone, so you can communicate audibly with the higher self or with the subconscious mind. We'll get to that. Pretty much most of the information that you could need, you're going to be able to access it by utilizing what's available right there in your office, right at your desk, without ever having to need the comfort of the center of your head. So this is going to help keep you neutral and better able to clear and provide healing energy to the people who come to you asking for help. When doing psychic readings, it's very important and very helpful to keep your mind calm and quiet. So you're going to want to remove distractions that run through your mind. Now, how do you do that? Well, there are quite a few different ways of doing that. I have a whole chapter in my book on the Handbook of Enlightenment that goes through ways of quieting the mind. But probably the simplest way to do this is to push them aside temporarily so that you can deal with them later. And you can use a simple imaging technique of imagining that you have a big box with a strong lid, and you put whatever the thought is or the memory is or the distraction is in the box, close the lid, and then move it off to the side, knowing that you'll come back to it later when you have time so that you can look at it. But that way it moves it out of your awareness while you're doing the reading, because you don't want anything to distract you when you're tuning into another person's energy. If you get stuck on something in your own head or something that you heard or saw on TV or on the internet, you might find yourself getting lit up and all of those memories getting activated and your reactions to them. And you'll find yourself talking about an issue of something going on in the world or something that you saw on the internet That has nothing to do with the person that you are psychically reading. So, for instance, perhaps you have strong feelings about global climate change, or the economy, or politics, or riots, or people's rights, or conflicts, or wars. And maybe just by mentioning these things cause memories to pop up. As these subjects fill your mind, they also fill your aura with pictures, with emotions, with opinions, and they can filter and color your perceptions. So you want to keep your reading space clear. You want your mind to be quiet. You want it to be neutral if you want to be an accurate reader. To be an accurate reader, you need to be neutral and have a quiet mind. That's part of becoming psychic. Otherwise, who knows what you're tapping into? You could be tapping into your own memory. You could be tapping into your own past lives and think it's the person that you're doing a psychic reading on. So you can certainly have opinions, and of course you do, but you need to leave them out of the readings, or you're not going to be reading the other person, but you're going to be reading projections of your own mind, and maybe your own subconscious mind. And you wouldn't even realize that you're reading your own subconscious mind. In some cases, you may need to spend some time prior to doing the reading, just clearing yourself and quieting your mind. Most people have pictures and programs in their aura that cause them to get emotionally triggered and stay lit up and activated, and they carry them around in their aura with them all day long. That's what causes you to get triggered, to react emotionally. And with subtle energy healing and clearing, you can look at these. You can actually see these subtle energy patterns, and you'll find ways of removing them. Now, if you interact with a lot of people, maybe at work or socially, you can get extremely overloaded with other people's energy if you don't clear your own energy field regularly. You pick up energy from everybody that you interact with. And if they have an emotional charge on something, you may find yourself having an emotional charge on it, and you think it's your emotional charge, when actually it's something you acquired from someone else. If you carry a lot of other people's energy in your aura, or you have a lot of your own emotional baggage, you're not going to be neutral, and you won't be reading the other people's information correctly. Or if you're reading yourself, you're trying to read your own auric information, you're going to have a distortion because it's affected by other people's energy. So it is essential you keep your aura and your field clear of other people's energy. And I've gone through this in another video. So if you haven't seen it yet, go back and watch why you feel drained and exhausted. Be alert for energy vampires. It's another video I have on YouTube that explains how you pick up other people's energy and how to clear it. And it's a very normal and natural process. We do it all the time. In fact, you almost can't stop picking up other people's energy. And all subtle energy has information in it. It has data, it has opinions, it has beliefs, it has emotional reactions, it has opinions about things. And you can pick this up from reading a book. You can pick it up from watching TV and reacting. You can get it from the internet. You can watch movies. You can pick it up from classes, from teachers, from groups that you belong to. You go to a yoga class. You go to an exercise class. There's all kinds of people in there. You sit in a dentist chair. How many other people sat in that chair today, and what energy did they leave in that office? What about the people cleaning your teeth and the dentist working on you, or in your doctor's office, or getting a massage, and they're rubbing and pushing energy through your body? Those are maybe some of the more obvious ways. But just talking to somebody, even standing next to somebody in line in the grocery store, you can pick up energy from people. And in a lot of cases, it can cause you to leave neutrality. And that distorts the way you view things psychically. If you want to be an effective reader and a healer, it's essential that you maintain neutrality and maintain it all through the session. So as you get through the session and you start picking up on some issues of that person, you don't want to get triggered by it and find yourself reacting to the person that you're trying to help clear. So you want to watch what lights you up, what triggers you when you're watching a video or a TV show, or you're reading, or you're listening to something, or you're talking to people, or you're on the internet. You're going through social media and you get all amped up about something and you yell at your computer. These days, you can see the savage part of human nature and the uncaring and callous way that one person treats another or treats animals, and it can color you. It can cause you to react, and that will all affect your readings. You may have trouble seeing the beautiful, the caring, the loving qualities of the soul. If your screen and aura are filled up with suffering and pain, that can affect how you interpret what you're seeing. Now, an extension of what I'm talking about here, to be aware of as you're doing psychic readings, is matching pictures or patterns, where you match the pattern of the person you're reading. And here's how this happens. They start telling you about something that they are emotionally triggered by, and it reminds you of something similar that happened to you, maybe a long time ago, or something that you heard about, or something that you read about. I have people tell me these kind of things all the time. They're telling me some news story they saw, and it's upsetting them, and it causes them to react. And when they tell you, it can cause you to react. So then you start thinking about your story, and it colors the clarity of the energy that you're reading on the other person. These are called matching patterns, matching programs, matching memories. And you need to become neutral about them, especially when you're doing a psychic scan on somebody. So you tune into your own space. You notice any thoughts or memories that have a judgment or an emotional reaction. And then you say to yourself, it is my intention and my desire to remove all negative energy on me or around me. I now remove it and dissolve it. And then you can use your imagination and vacuum it off. Or you can imagine pulling it off and putting it on a sponge and then moving it off and disintegrating it. Also, you can use golden energy on a golden sponge and wipe your screen and clean it. I also recommend that you clear your aura. It's a big good idea to do it every day by spinning a violet tornado, especially anytime you pick up someone else's energy or pattern where you find yourself reacting to someone. So I've explained that on other videos. Basically, what you do is you pull your aura into 18 inches and you create a column of violet light energy. I usually make them 6 feet in diameter. And then you spin it like a tornado with the intention that it dissolves everyone else's energy on you and around you and dissolves all energy cords connecting you to that person. You spin it for maybe 10 or 15 seconds at the most. You don't need to spin it long. And then you ask violet energy to fill your entire universe and dissolve everyone's energy out of your universe. Now, some people do that very casually, and I just want to emphasize this because I do have people that I talk to that tell me that they do it and it doesn't seem to work. And so what I've suggested people do is describe to themselves out loud, or at least move your lips explaining what you're doing while you're doing it. If you do that, it'll make it more effective than if you just use your imagination. There's something called the power of the spoken word. And what it does is it focuses the energy of your intention and your words to the very specific result that you want. If you just do it in your mind, it can kind of get lost and become vague. Most of what you think and most of the causes of how you react, including why you relate to one person differently from another, are due to your past experiences. And it's important that you clear your own negative emotions, judgments, and dysfunctional energies, including your beliefs about loss and lack and being undeserving. For instance, have you ever gotten angry when somebody cut in front of you when you were driving? Or maybe they got in front of you when you were in line at a grocery store? Why did you get angry? Well, you have a picture in your mind that that's not fair. They shouldn't do that. They have no right to do that. I own that space. That's my space. What right do they have to get in my space? And so you have a belief, and the belief triggers an emotional reaction of anger. Now, if you react to what someone else does, this means that that picture is running you. And when you walk around with activated pictures, they gather energy to themselves. And they not only affect how you feel, but they also affect people you interact with, and they create an attractor field where they can attract more of those kinds of things. So if you're irritable, you can attract conversations and interactions with other people and make them irritable and make yourself irritable. So if you're irritable, that can activate irritability pictures in other people. And what happens is you ping pong. You project some irritable energy to the other person, they project it back to you, and you ping pong the energy back and forth. And you both get upset, and you wonder why. And so you think, well, this is just my personality. I'm an irritable person, or I'm a grumpy old man, or I just get pissed off easily. When actually it's pictures and other people's energy that you've accumulated, and they form what's called a subpersonality. And these subpersonalities are composed of pictures that have emotional reactions to them and beliefs. And they form components of your own personality. And since you identify with it, you think it's you, or at least some part of you, you react to these things as if they are you. And then you project that onto other people. If you seem to keep having to clear some of these kinds of things over and over again, these are some of the things to look at. It's quite true. You may not get all of the pictures and programs the first time you try to clear them. You most likely will not. This is because there are patterns that are laid down in layers. And believe me, there are a lot of layers. Let's say you've gotten angry since you were a little child. How many times do you think you've gotten angry from the time you were a little kid? Well, it could be thousands of times, right? Probably hundreds at least. Every time you've gotten upset or angry or mad or sad or whatever the emotion is, you have infused it with more life force energy. That creates another thought form, and it lays down a pattern. And you get one layer upon another. And over time, you get a whole bunch of layers. So eventually, you've got just a whole stack of these things. And clearing them, clearing your past, is like digging through a garbage can. The deeper you dig, the further back in time you go. But eventually, you get to the bottom. And at that point, you're clear. But in the meantime, you're going to think, this is going to go on forever. Everybody thinks that. Because sometimes it can literally take you years to clear everything that you have built up over lifetimes. And if you stop to think about that, that in itself is pretty amazing. That you could clear lifetimes. How many lifetimes have you had? Dozens, hundreds, some people say thousands, most of which you don't remember. Let's say you've had 1,000 lifetimes. The fact that in one lifetime, this lifetime, you could clear all the negativity that you've ever accumulated and all of the karmic control patterns from all of those lifetimes, you can clear them in a few years in this lifetime. I think that's a miracle that you need to be really grateful for, that there are the ways and the means of getting the information that you can do that, and you can learn how to do that. Now, another thing to look into, if you find yourself reacting, is to see if there might be a past life, or maybe a contract or an agreement that keeps recreating the belief or the thought forms. So I'll give you an example of this. I remember there was a woman who had chronic headaches, and I tracked her past lives. I think I went through dozens of past lives, if I recall, and we went all the way back to the Roman Colosseum, where she was hit on the head by a gladiator with one of those, I think they call it a mace. It was like a big ball of spikes on it, and the gladiator killed her by hit her on the head with this thing. And all of the lifetimes that she had had since that time, she had headaches or head problems. Once we realized that it started with that Roman Colosseum lifetime, and we cleared that lifetime, her headaches stopped, and she never had those headaches again. Now, not all problems are due to past lives or to other people's issues. Some cases, we have some sort of like hardwiring that you've picked up that might be from your own ancestry. You may have inherited something. It might be sometimes the doctors will ask you, does anyone else in your family, do you have a family history of this problem? Because they recognize that a lot of times these things can be handed down genetically, but also energetically. So there could be something in a person's nervous system or in their brain or in the organs and tissues of the body. And by this, I mean the physical body itself can store pictures and emotions either from your past or from someone in your ancestry. This is brought out in some cases where they've done organ transplants. You've probably heard the stories. Someone gets a heart in an organ transplant, and they suddenly love jazz music, whereas they couldn't stand jazz music before. And then they find out that the person whose heart they got was from a jazz musician. Or they suddenly love apple pie, and before that they were allergic to apple pie because the person whose heart they got was a person who loved apple pie. Now, I've tracked back some of these patterns 7 generations, and some people say it can go a lot further back than that. I don't know. I have a little difficulty tracking back that far because the gene pool gets pretty dilute when you go back 7 or 10 generations. But regardless, when you find a picture, a memory, or an emotion, you can remove the life force energy from it, and it will help you become neutral. So make sure that you request to clear all the past lives that are attached to a picture, and then you shift the energy into present time. Methods for doing this are varied, but you start with a request and an intention to release, surrender, let go, and dissolve all causes of the negative incidents. Then you follow that by applying forgiveness, or maybe Ho'oponopono, and I have a video on that if you don't know what that is. Or you can use any of several energy healing methods, such as Reiki, or aura raking, the cleansing violet light that I've mentioned, energetic vacuums I've mentioned a few times, fire ceremonies, sweat lodges, saging, which is sometimes called smudging. That's just simply burning sage, usually white sage, and then you use the smoke for spiritual cleansing and purification. Pictures in your energy field are like recordings, playing over and over the information that they hold. What you fear when it gets lit up or dominates your consciousness is like a magnetic field or an attractor field that can draw the experiences to you, because pictures have an emotional charge on them. And that charge can control your life, because they can attract to you the content of the pictures. So in that sense, they can run you. So you want to take the energy out of the pictures that control you. So when I talk about energy healing, that's what I'm talking about. You clean the pictures of your own past experiences, and then you can do this for others as well. One way of doing it is taking a memory, which is basically like a picture. Imagine a grounding column or a cord attached to it. Send it down to the center of the earth. Ask all the energy in that memory to turn a color. Doesn't matter what color. I usually use bright blue or bright red because it's easy to imagine or visualize. And then you drain all of that down into the earth where it's neutralized. And then you fill the picture with golden light. And if it seems appropriate, you can ask your enlightened soul to merge into that, whatever that memory or that picture is. If you're talking about a feeling or someone else's energy or a program that you might find on yourself or someone else, you can disintegrate them. You can imagine a laser beam disintegrating it. It's a thought form. It's a little bubble of energy that's made out of emotional content and beliefs and pictures, and you can disintegrate them. You can use a laser beam. You can use violet light. You can use a sponge technique where you imagine that there's a sponge and you put the feeling and the picture that you visualize on the sponge, and then you move it off and disintegrate it. These are all really easy visual images and patterns and practices to use. And once you get used to them, you can do them so quickly and so automatically. Once you pull all the energy out of these pictures, then they can't control you, because there won't be any energy in them to do that to you. One interesting way to check in with yourself to see to what degree you're affected by negative energy from any source is to put yourself in a meditative state and imagine a large meter in front of you that goes from 0 to 100%, and it has a big red needle in it. And you ask yourself, to what degree am I still affected by negative energy? And if you want, you can be very specific. You can stipulate, to what degree am I affected by so-and-so's energy on me? And you get a number. It may not be 100% accurate. It'll give you a relative idea. If it's more than 0, though, you realize you've got some work to do. You want to clear these energies patterns off. Sometimes there are thousands of pictures and patterns that can make you think that the clearing is going to go on forever, but it doesn't. There is a quantifiable amount of these thought forms Like I said, it's literally like digging through a garbage can of subtle energy. And once they're gone for good. Now, one other question to ask in this regard is, how do you know if you're reading your own pattern or picture, or you're reading the other person's energy? For example, if you're reading someone and they have a fear of dogs, and you find out they were bitten by a dog when they were little, so now they're afraid of dogs. And in your mind, you're thinking, I sense you're afraid of dogs. And in your mind, you're thinking, this reminds me when I visited my neighbor's house when I was 10 and a dog bit me. That's called reading your own picture or reading your own matching memory. You've just read yourself and you've projected it onto the other person. So you've got to clean off your own pictures or memories when they come up so you can clearly read the other person. What happened to them was they were watching their friend play with a dog, and he accidentally pinched the dog, and the dog scratched him. A completely different story, completely different karma, and your pattern triggered your memory. If you react, you can know you hit a matching memory pattern. Many psychics don't know about this, and they spend a lot of time telling other people about their own matching patterns, and they don't even know it. They don't even remember it. It's something in their subconscious that they long ago forgot. Or maybe it's energy they picked up from another client. So it's important to recognize where the information is coming from. What is this that you're seeing and telling the person about? Now, I want to comment at this point on the subject of free will, because you certainly feel like you have free will, right? An example of free will is your ability to choose what you want. You know, you're reading the menu in the restaurant and you can pretty much pick whatever you want. The question is, what went into making the choice? Now, unless you've done extensive clearing work, you've undoubtedly accumulated a lot of pictures and patterns from your past, as well as other people's energy on you. And the type of energy that you have affects what type of emotions you experience, what you attract, what you create, and the choices that you make. So when you have a list of patterns from your past, a lot of patterns from other people, they begin to control you, and you think you have free will, but you've actually lost it. You've given it up to the pictures that you've been accumulating. Most people, and even those who are aware of subtle energy, don't like to admit that they're being controlled by these thought form patterns and emotions, so they refuse to do anything about it. When you find yourself out of control, ask yourself, what picture or thought form am I reacting to or reacting off of? Whatever it is, then do a clearing. When you have a strong emotional reaction to something, you can be sure you have a picture with emotional energy attached. If you feel overwhelming needs and drives to do something, like join a cause, control other people in your life to do what you want them to do, or even something like craving junk food or alcohol or tobacco, those can be from pictures in your aura, and they contribute to addictions. So just be clear on your reasons for doing anything. You should not be acting or reacting from pictures, but from clear, free will, and not old patterns from your past or energy you've accumulated from someone else who's influencing you to make certain choices. You know, maybe the person sitting across from you in the restaurant has some pretty strong ideas of what you should eat and not eat. And they are telepathically projecting that energy to you. And you don't even realize it. It might be activating a picture that you have. Maybe you feel guilty about choosing certain things, but you'd really like to order it. When you do psychic readings, you will find that people who are controlled by their pictures are the very ones who say, I don't think what you're telling me is what you're getting psychically correct. I don't have that problem. Now, assuming that you're not reading your own energy and you are clear yourself, then they are in denial. They don't want to see how they are being controlled. And that is called living through a thought form or living through a picture. And the way I deal with this is to usually ask the person a question related to the picture or the pattern that I'm noticing. And this allows them to explore within themselves how to address the issue. For instance, I'll often ask questions during my sessions with people when I already know the answer, but I want them to acknowledge the memory or the pattern. For example, do you find that you tend to get angry when people ask you to do them a favor that inconveniences you? Where did I get that question from? It was from a picture that I saw around the person. And rather than telling that person, I think they have an anger issue, I'll put it in a question that's related to the picture. And of course, it's going to have a ring of truth to them. It's their picture. So they won't feel like I'm trying to confront them or control them or accuse them or criticize them. Rather, I'm working together with them to help them to clear something. So as you read pictures and patterns, you're just simply telling people what you see. You are a vehicle for conveying information to the person. You attempt to be neutral when you read the person's pictures. The information is coming through you. You are just describing what you perceive. Now, you may not always interpret it accurately because some things are symbolic. And when you don't understand the picture, you just say, I don't really understand what this is that I'm seeing, but this is an image that I'm getting. So I'm telling you about it. And when you do that, they'll say, oh, I know what that is. I've heard that many, many times because it's their picture. It was somewhere in their memory. You don't want to pass it through your analytical analyzer mechanism. That's not getting clear information, and it ties up your energy. When you say, I think that, or let me see if I can figure this out, you're passing it through your own memory banks, your own analytical mechanism, and your own interpretation. That is not an accurate representation of the soul energy that you're reading. So as you do your readings, you want to be clear as possible. You want to be as neutral as possible. You want your own mind to be as quiet as possible. And so it's helpful. Fill yourself with your own soul. Be in present time. Stay in the center of your own head. Don't allow your own energy to overlap the other person's energy. And refuse to allow anyone else's programming to become your programming. Now I'm going to stop here. I can go on and on. So you can go on to the next video in the Psychic Development series. On the next video, which is going to be the last one in this sequence, you're going to practice reading and clearing your third eye or your sixth chakra. I'm going to guide you through a process by asking you a lot of questions so you can gain psychic insights and understanding, and it'll help you to start balancing psychic clearing skills. So that's it for now. I'm going to join you on the next video on clearing your sixth chakra.